There is at least some making of a quarterback controversy here. If Cooper Rush goes out and plays big Sunday night in Philadelphia, RC, what do you think?
I don't think that's true. I mean, y'all, we're missing the big business of football. We're missing the understanding that Dak is the franchise quarterback. And yes, Jerry Jones did say he'd welcome a quarterback competition, but that was tongue-in-cheek. That wasn't necessarily he believes Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott or he believes Cooper Rush is equal to Dak Prescott. What he's saying is he wants to win games. And he mentioned earlier, remember, he was like Prescott did, if he wins 10 games. Well, Tony Romo was banged up. Tony Romo was a guy on his way out. Tony Romo was a little bit older. He understands that Dak Prescott is going to allow him to win. He also gets that last week they won the game because they got a scoop and score on a sack fumble. They won the game because they got an early punt block. They won the game because they had a dominant defense, because Tony Pollard has juice. That's why they won that game. Cooper Rush threw for 100 yards. And so when you think about what this Cowboy team is doing, it's about the defense, it's about actual good coaching from Mike McCarthy, and it's about a quarterback who is not losing the football game. But this isn't how you win a championship. And talking to Trayvon Diggs and talking to Micah Parsons yesterday, who will be on the pivot this evening, they said it. It doesn't matter to us who is playing quarterback. There doesn't have to be a mindset switch, because we tell them if you go out and score, we can win. He said that's what Dan Quinn tells them. Don't worry about who's playing under center. We got to do our job. And it's been the defense that's been doing their job that's keeping them in games, but Cooper Rush is not winning them. They're winning in spite of mostly, and that's why when Dak comes back, I believe it's an easy transition. Also why he's not back this week, because you don't want to bring him back for the Philly game, have him lose to a superior team, and then now everybody's saying, oh, but Cooper Rush was undefeated. Yeah, he also got to play the Commanders.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, but you're kind of making the point, which is to say that if we are in any way finagling when we bring Dak back, it is because there are external reasons beyond just he's the guy, we're putting him back on the field. So here's the point I would make to you, Ninko. No one is debating that Dak Prescott is the future of the Dallas Cowboys at quarterback, and that future is this year. I'm not talking about the rest of the time. But is there anything to the hot hand? Is there anything to Cooper Rush wins this game? You know what? Let's leave him out there at least until he loses one, or something like that, and then let Dak get completely healthy, ride the hot hand. Why not do it? Is there anything to that at all, Ninko?
No, not at all. And listen to what I'm telling you. What Troy Aikman is talking about was in 1991. And the difference between 1991 and 2022 is about $124 million guaranteed, okay?
Right. Yeah.
Follow the money and follow the talent. The talent of Dak is superior to Cooper Rush. Everything, out of the pocket, in the pocket, arm strength. So what the Dallas Cowboys need to do is every single person that played after Dak got hurt is look at themselves in the mirror, look at yourself and say, what did I do better when Dak went out of the lineup to where our team improved? How do I continue to play this way when Dak comes back? Because if we can do that, if we can play like that when Dak gets back on the field, we will be a much better football team when Dak is our starting quarterback. So, with the money in place, Dak is your guy. With the franchise quarterback, you pay him that money, he is the guy, and if everyone else collectively can play like they have the last few weeks with Dak, they're going to be a better football team.
Brooke, you understand these things better than anybody. Do we have the makings, any makings, of a quarterback controversy in Dallas?
Long term, no, definitely not. But to what Ninko just said, if everyone can keep doing what they're doing, why even have to make that a question if you keep Cooper Rush in there? I think that you need to keep him in there while this team is winning. It's also about how the defense is playing. If the defense is holding up their end of the bargain, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. And to that matter, then keep Cooper Rush in there because he's helping them win games because of how everyone else is playing around him.
Look, you put Dak Prescott at his best on the field with the way this team is playing, Sam Acho. This is a Super Bowl team. This is a team that could go to the Super Bowl. No one is debating, and no way am I comparing Cooper Rush to Dak Prescott. I'm just saying there's something in the hot hand.
And you're right. There is something in the hot hand. You're not trying to win the Super Bowl right now, right? You're trying to win games right now.
Right.
All the Cowboys have done with Cooper Rush at quarterback is win games. They're 4. People expected maybe 1-3, maybe 2. They're 4-0. You've bought Dak time. You've bought Dak a couple weeks. Dak hasn't practiced yet. He hasn't even gone through a full week of practice yet. The coach has said, let's give him a full week. Let's give him all that. If you find a way, because Dak's probably not going to play this week, if you find a way to beat the Eagles, now you're 5-0. You have the Lions and you have the Bears after that. Then you have your bye week. Give yourself 3 weeks, right? Ride the hot hand until the bye week. Everyone knows in the bye week you go, you self-scout, you evaluate, boom. But not only that, you've given your quarterback time to fully heal rather than try to rush back and get him back to try and win a certain game that you already have found a way to win. And so for me, if you're already winning, your defense is playing dominant, Dorrance Armstrong, guys like that are dominating, your special teams is playing well, your run game is strong, let yourself keep on winning. You don't need to make a change right now, especially because you have the formula that wins. Now, there's going to be a time, I would say post-bye week or after the first loss, when you put Dak back in and you ride that wave and you find a way to win. But now's not that time.
RC, go.
Yeah, we are thinking way too much, guys. The only thing that winning has allowed the Cowboys to do is wait until Dak is healthy. They're not sitting in meetings and trying to play double dutch. Oh, we could put him in this week. We could put him in that week. Who's playing this and this? No, because all the pressure would come from us, right? What would happen is if Dak played against the Philadelphia Eagles, who may be the superior team anyway, with Dak Prescott playing, if he played against the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philadelphia Eagles win, what are we going to do? Greeny, in the A's, do we have a quarterback controversy?
Right.
I talked to Phoebe, and Phoebe looked at me and she shook her tail because she was excited. We're not going to do that. We are not inside that building. Inside of that building, they understand Dak's leadership. They understand Dak's skill set. They also understand that Dak has got an opportunity to sit back and watch this team operate. But not only him, but Kellen Moore gets it now. Dan Quinn gets it now. Mike McCarthy gets it now. They understand how they have to win football games. But this is the NFL. The NFL is about an elevated level of talent. The NFL is about playing the best man for the position. And I get it. If a team is playing well, you want things to be the same way.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.